What it do, YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review NF's fourth studio album, and this album came out in the summer of 2019, and it's called The Search. So basically, this project came after NF's surprise hit Commercial Potential with Perception from 2017, which had a number of top 50 hits on the Billboard 100 with Let You Down and then Lie, and then it also had If You Want Love that crested way later. So basically, NF was all over the radio between like the summer of 2017 and the summer of 2019. Perception really crested on the radio for a good 2 years, and the singles had a lot of staying power. I want to say that Perception went platinum or something like that, or at least gold, one of the two. It was definitely one of the more hit albums from certain rap music out of the late 2010s. Not just well, it just was it was just a hot ticket across the late 2010s and stuff. So when NF came back in the summer of 2019, it was kind of like, okay, is it going to be like Perception, or is he going to go back to his first two albums from 2015 and 2016 that were kind of more underground? And this album basically is like a glossier version of Perception. From what I remember of Perception, it's been a couple years since I reviewed it, but I do remember that NF really had like the kind of singles like Let You Down and Lie really mastered in terms of doing like the Eminem recovery type style of making makeshift kind of rap music for like the radio and kind of everyday workaday kind of blue collar type stuff. But when he tried to do like trap and kind of harder rap, it just didn't mesh that well for him. And he still has that problem on this album. He does attempt to do it, but it just really comes off as like soft core rap music just because NF is really not that good of a selector for trap beats or more high octane kind of rhythmic kind of rap music in that sense. But he does have a pretty strong mastery of like this Eminem ruminating. If you like Eminem on songs like The Way I Am and kind of Drug Ballad and Kim and Stan and some of those type records. Now, obviously, the production is not from like the year 2000 and the early 2000s and such, but NF definitely has mastered like Eminem's style of ruminating. He's very similar to Hopsin, very similar. NF is very similar to Hopsin. He's very similar to Eminem, and he does a lot of ruminating on this project that just really shows off the case of him being able to be a real brooding rapper, very similar to Tech Nine, Hopsin, Dax, Eminem, and people like that. It's just very good. I give him credit for that. He's learned how to. I mean, he's definitely a rapper. I will say that NF is definitely a rapper that knows how to make complaining and kind of thought provoking type stuff interesting. Eminem was a pro at that back in the early 2000s, but I feel like NF has really got that down to a T, especially in like radio jingles and more mainstream and blue collar type music. It's just a definite great feeling that he has that, and just really on such an early album, just because his only true commercial album prior to this one was just Perception, and he only had like two and maybe three singles depending upon how gracious you are with his career. But it's just definitely kind of the situation. This is kind of further extensive, kind of fleshing that out. But unfortunately, the singles are not quite as interesting as they were on Perception. I think NF in certain ways kind of realizes that people like him more on songs like uh, Lie, and I think NF realizes people like him more on songs like Lie and Let You Down and If You Want Love and those type radio bops. He only does that once in the singles from this album. It's just with the single Time. Everything else on here is trying to be more of like the trap type stuff, and it just doesn't really work well with him. I kind of feel like, I mean, in my opinion, this is probably NF's best album. I'd probably say this has the most hits on here, but it's just not that glossy compared to Perception. Perception's probably the more commercial and probably the one that should sell better, despite the fact that this is a better album, just because it just doesn't really nail the singles. Like NF kind of drops the ball with the singles more often than he should. And that was kind of, I think this is a better album than Clouds, the mixtape, and it is better than Perception, but Perception is just the more, uh, this one probably would catch more attention just because it has the better singles and is just better with tempting radio. But this is the better album. It does, I mean, it has radio jingles on here, but they're just not singles. That's what you have to kind of understand. It's just very much like just purchase the album and find the hits yourself, kind of pick and choose more so than hearing about it through word of mouth. But so I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the singles off this album. The first single is Why, and this came out in the summer of 2018. This is a trap beat. It has a real haunting kind of production on here. I definitely feel like it's a ruminating song. Definitely a song for the evening time and that type of stuff. Not necessarily work or blue collar, but it just kind of gives off a nice kind of the sort of music that Eminem needs to make. But I definitely feel like the concept behind this is it just has a pretty like why is the type of song ruminating wise that Eminem needs to make nowadays, because it's kind of a trap beat. It has a real kind of syrupy and hypnotic type beat in here, but it just is really kind of a good approach for how NF handled it. This is definitely like the sort of solid type rap song that I would like to see from Eminem and Hopsin and some of those type people, because it's just a real nice one. Unfortunately, there's not many songs like this on this album that are as good as Why. This is a good single. It's kind of dark, very ruminating, very much just kind of brooding in your house or brooding in on your property, having a few beers, something like that. This kind of more, it's more insular. It's not really a party song. It doesn't feel like. I mean, really, NF has always been kind of like a more insular and kind of like brooding kind of individual, but this is just the perfect kind of ruminating kind of song. It can be used as a party song, but it's just not really in that vernacular too much, because NF is not really that much of a party goer in that much of a sense. I mean, he kind of is, but not extensively. So the second single is The Search, and I really didn't like this single. This is one that was very similar to some of the songs off Clouds, the mixtape, that kind of go for like a more operatic and kind of more of like an opera type feel, and just kind of with like these kind of orchestral instruments that just don't really suit him that well. There's not too many trap rappers that kind of do that, but I kind of feel like NF was really aiming for a different vibe on this project, but it just kind of takes him out of context, and it really puts him in a different valve that just doesn't really suit him that well. I mean, I say this every time I review an NF album, but he's really not that cogent a trap rapper. I mean, he's always trying to do like these real kind of after work and kind of like up tempo and kind of maybe not up tempo, but just kind of crazy kind of like rave kind of trap type songs, but he's really not that good at it. I mean, I feel like one of Young Thug or Future's worst songs could I feel like one of Young Thug or Future's worst songs could basically step all over this. It's just not really comparable to like some of the worst songs. Like I know Young Thug and Future kind of like the concept of doing blue collar songs when it calls for it, but NF, this is just really not his cup of tea as far as doing that. I feel like the search is just I feel like the search is just too dramatic, too overdrawn, too looming in like a bad way, and it just doesn't have really too many concoctions worthwhile. It's like basically like the song Clouds off of Clouds, the mixtape from 2021. It's the same kind of concoction, just in a bad sense, and the energy is just not where it needs to be. When I Grow Up is the third single, and this is kind of one that's similar to the same kind of archetype that Eminem does, with more of this kind of ruminating and brooding type stuff, just kind of in a more childlike sense, just kind of talking about the theme of the song being when I grow up and things changing as time progresses and I mature and that type of stuff. Didn't really like this one. Didn't like the context of the topic. I liked the beat, and I would have liked the song if it would have had a different topic, but I just feel like the context, considering that NF was like 28, 29 when he made this album, this seems like kind of an odd topic to be talking about when I grow up when you have 3 or 4 albums out in stores already. This was kind of an awkward kind of context as far as that kind of went. So I wasn't vibing with that one. I did like the beat, but not enough, just because the topic was kind of a little bit paltry. So I wasn't enjoying that one. So it's 2 singles out of 4 I didn't like. Basically, the only true single I felt like was really the star-studded winner out of all 4 of these was just Time. And this one, Time really is like the kind of song that and Time is really like the kind of song that NF was trying to do on Perception. It's basically like a sequel to Lie and Let You Down and If You Want Love and some of those. This is really the kind of song that NF needed. This is the kind of stuff to flesh out his career and sell the copies of the CD and sell units and that type of stuff. This is definitely the sort of stuff that would have sold the album, but unfortunately he spent too much time trying to develop like his trap taste and kind of more like rowdy kind of music that just didn't really suit him. I mean, it's not like he can't do it. It's just the fact that in terms of a single, I mean, Eminem kind of has this concept down as well. He's not really that good at trap either. But I just feel like there's just certain artists that just don't blend with kind of like trap music and the kind of 2010s trends that were kind of going along. I feel like NF just kind of he shined through on a song like Time, has a great hook on there, very similar to Lie and Let You Down. He sings it, develops it well. Just a perfect little single, perfect blue collar after work, before work kind of single to kind of get you through your day and stuff. And I know it kind of seems like, well, NF shouldn't just be blue collar music, but unfortunately, I think there needs to be more fleshing out and trying to develop these singles as far as trying to get them, because Clouds kind of did this too, and I was really looking for more songs like the hits off of Perception, but at least there's one out of the 4 singles. I do like Why, but it's a distant second favorite compared to Time, and then the other 2 singles I just didn't like at all. So it's just kind of now, to kind of talk about this album, despite the fact that I complained enough about the singles, there are actually a number of hits on here. I'm going to go ahead and list the 11 songs out of 18 that I enjoyed. So, out of 20 songs, one is Time, which is just the radio edit, and then another one's an interlude. So, there's actually 18 songs. So, I'll list the 11 songs out of 18 I recommend. So, they would be Time, Why, Leave Me Alone, Hate Myself, Change, My Stress, Only, Like This, Thinking, Trauma, and Let Me Go. Now, some of these, I feel like Trauma is one of the best beats on this album. This definitely gives me like Evanescence type vibes. Definitely very moody, has a brilliant kind of sad, depressing kind of piano type beat. The Evanescence really perfected on albums like Fallen and The Open Door and stuff. It's an overall great song. I was really surprised that NF kind of pulled off this song. There's a lot of ruminating songs on here. I'll go ahead and talk about some of these. Like I feel like Why, Leave Me Alone, and Let Me Go are all ruminating songs. Like Leave Me Alone is very similar to Search, the title track, just not quite as dramatic and not quite as awful. I feel like Leave Me Alone really nailed it pretty well. This is a nice night type feel, very similar to Clouds, the title track off of the Clouds mixtape. This is a good example of a ruminating song. And yeah, Let Me Go is kind of like a cigarette smoking kind of ruminating song, very similar to Leave Me Alone, and Why has that same kind of similar vibe. And I feel like Thinking is like an early morning makeshift kind of song. I feel like Change and Thinking are some great morning kind of radio kind of jingles, perfect for just the morning commute and getting to work and getting breakfast for yourself and just the early travels of the day and that type of stuff. They just really have that kind of this kind of allure of like the morning time breakfast croissants and bagels and biscuits and that type of stuff. This good breakfast type songs. And I feel like Only is another makeshift song. This is another real good one. This has the only guest on here with Sasha Sloan, but this is a nice one for like kind of very similar to the songs off of Perception, some of the radio type jingles off that album. I feel like Only is a nice one for that. So really songs like Change, I feel like Change, Only, and Thinking are some more songs that are very similar to NF style on Perception, in addition to Time being a great one for that. And like Hate Myself is another great radio jingle. This is definitely one that's similar to Perception, just kind of in a depressing sense. This is more evening type feels. Has a great hook on there, just like Time does. NF does the hook on there pretty good. So Hate Myself and Time are pretty much 2 of the most radio ready ones. If you're looking for more singles like Time, but realize that there aren't any singles like that for the rest of the album, Hate Myself is a good candidate. And then there's actually like some haunting radio songs, like My Stress is a pretty haunting makeshift song. This one kind of is kind of creepy and brooding, kind of similar to Trauma. And there's like another haunting one on here, like Leave Me Alone. My Stress is very similar to Leave Me Alone and Trauma. Some of these, I mean, something that I feel like NF really kind of developed a taste for on this album is just kind of making like this brooding, kind of haunting kind of music that Eminem kind of did and Tech Nine and Hopsin kind of did, but he just really developed a style as far as bringing that to mainstream, because this is almost, I don't want to say this album is like a horrorcore mainstream album, but it's definitely something that it's definitely something that Evanescence kind of did, just with rap music, like the sort of haunting kind of stuff that Amy Lee kind of does with the pianos and the kind of brooding, kind of spooky, kind of autumn type feels. I feel like NF did this just with rap music, and it's just a good example that there's a number of songs on here that do kind of have like songs like Leave Me Alone, Hate Myself is kind of grim, My Stress, Trauma, and Like This are all some really kind of pretty like shrill kind of ones that just kind of do that. And speaking of Like This is one of the few songs on this album that really feels like a night venue song. Like, I've noticed that NF doesn't really make club songs like that, and he's not really a club rapper. Doesn't seem like he goes out in that sort of sense. I think he does at least socialize, but he's not really dance club, nightclub, strip club type dude. I feel like one of the few songs that kind of gave me night venue type vibes was Like This. It's one of the few ones. I would have liked more songs like the song Like This. That would have definitely worked. But for the most part, NF really has mastered like the ruminating, the kind of brooding and bloodletting that Eminem and people like that in Tech Nine do. But I just kind of feel like he's got that down to a T, and he also has some pretty good blue collar type songs down to a T when he does them. It's really a shame that he did not bolster this album with more singles that could have been like Time, but he chose to try some new things and then just plain didn't pull them off. But still, I liked 11 out of 18 songs. So I'm going to give this album a 6.75 out of 10, which is actually pretty high for what I've normally scored NF, because Clouds and Perception I remember giving like a 3 or a 4 out of 10. So this is actually, in my opinion, basically thus far, I feel like The Search is NF's best album. I definitely feel like this is the best one out of the 3 that I've heard. It's better than Clouds, better than Perception, just with the exception of just not having more singles like Time and more blue collar radio stuff. He really needs to perfect that more in the singles, just because it's really a strong trade that he has. It's definitely a strength to showcase and flaunt. So the social score, though, I'm gonna give like the social score like a 7.75 out of 10, because I feel like enough of this album is pretty social. I like the ruminating moments. I think probably you and select amount of friends could probably enjoy some of the ruminating and that type of stuff. There's no real drinking or smoking song. There's not too many songs just in a romantic kind of R&B sense, and kind of like most of these are kind of mid or long-term relationship. Most of these are kind of mid or long-term relationship type feels. There's not really anything spicy in terms of like a flirty type number, R&B related or something. And there's not really like posse songs. There's no guests on here, which is kind of something that bugs me somewhat about NF not doing that. There's not really any differential producers. So there are some things. I mean, NF typically just does the album by himself, and just doesn't have any, does the album by himself, both beats and verses by himself, and that's kind of something that does get tiresome. But I do at least like this album. I can say I like this better than the stuff I've heard thus far by him, so it's good enough to get that. But yeah, there's just some social moments on here, some good ruminating songs, some good makeshift going to work kind of songs and breakfast songs, and there's some good kind of haunting Evanescence like songs in a rap sense. So he has a good haunting feel. It's just a grim album, and NF really has a trait of having a good character. He does have an interesting character, and he shows that off. His ruminating is interesting, kind of like it was with Eminem, so he does manage to be able to pull off some of these moments. But this kind of the weaknesses about it is just the fact that he does not have trap down. And to talk about some of these songs I didn't like, most of these songs I didn't like the title track Search, Returns, Options, No Excuses. I mean, some of these I just really did not like the concept of these trap beats on here. And I really feel like he just most of the time fumbles the ball trying to do them. They're just really softcore rap, and he just doesn't pull off the finesse of how easily that Future, Young Thug, some of those type people, like other folks like Migos and some of the rest of them that kind of do that sort of thing. He needs to take a couple pages out of their playbook and figure out how to do it, because it's just not believable in the sense of NF coming off as this hard type rapper doing those type songs when it just doesn't like translate well. So that's kind of the concept. I feel like, yeah, there need to be guests, there need to be club songs, there need to be different beats on here, and there needed to be less trap, or at least better execution of the trap that he tries to do. So those are just some of the weaknesses. So 7.75 social. Can this record be topped? I feel like this is pretty much NF's best album thus far, so I'd have to say that. We'll see how his Hope album next month does. I'll eventually review that. And this would have to say, in terms of the, yeah, well, basically in terms of the future, speaking of that, NF's 2023 album is coming out in early April, so I will eventually get to that and we'll see what's up with it. But for what it is, I do feel like this is a pretty, actually, above average, decently solid type project. Definitely NF's best in my opinion, but I feel like there's still the typical NF kinks that are like typical of his fashion, but at least this is a quality album. So